Hello everyone, my name is Amanda Lonsdorf and I am the UUC Board Past President, and I would like to welcome everyone to the Unitarian Universalist congregation today. We are a religious community who commit ourselves to diversity, and we hope to nourish human differences, those of age, race, gender, ability, sexual orientation, political views, culture, class, mental or physical health status, and religious belief. We welcome all those who treasure freedom of conscience in the search for truth. And we promise to do our best to provide you a spiritual home. And we extend a special welcome to our visitors today, and we hope that you will all fill out an online visitor form, and hope that you'll follow our Facebook page. That way you'll keep updated on events and happenings, and there are religious exploration opportunities for children, teens, adults, everybody. And there are many ways to expand your mind and expand your heart with the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Eau Claire. So we're really glad that you joined us today. Thanks for being here.
This reading is Freedom to Doubt by Paul Stefan Dodenhoff. The freedom to doubt, to question, to be content, to live in mystery is central to the liberal religious tradition. Like the process of evolution itself, the path that we follow, our practice, is not easy or simple. It isn't without its dead ends or disappointments. It doesn't guarantee that all of our conclusions will be final or that we will ever find an answer to all of our questions. But also, like the process of evolution, it is filled with great expressions of beauty and awe that are sometimes born of great struggle and at other times come as unexpected grace.
We light this chalice, spark of the original fire of creation, to remind us that we are all on this planet, the furred, the feathered, the finned, and the scaled, along with us featherless bipeds. We're all made of the same star stuff and all share a common destiny. We all share the same hopes of a life free from harm and suffering and the same aspirations of happiness, love, and flourishing, being able to express our own unique natures and capabilities as best we may. We are just that many diverse perspectives from which the whole is seen and experienced. We are inextricably intertwined, interconnected, and interdependent. And it is good. Blessed be.
Committed to respond to the call of a wounded world, we join together this day with loving hearts, hands, and minds, embracing the interconnected web of water, air, and earth. We light a fire of sustaining hope ever bright with love and justice. May we bring forth this day new wisdom, strength, and courage to create a new world, not of wealth, but well-being, a world of new peace and abundance for all. As we give thanks for this earth, our shared and singular home, may we dedicate ourselves to its ongoing care. Rising to the calls deep within us and all around us, may we respond today and always with courage and with love.
This Sunday evening at 6 p.m., we will be having an anti-racism discussion. And if you would like the link to that Zoom meeting, you're welcome to join. You can just message the Facebook page and we will be happy to send that to you. Each month we will be holding a monthly anti-racism discussion or book study, and we're going to continue to look at privilege and really try and delve into this topic as is important to do. Now is the time in our service where we share our deepest joys and concerns. If you have a joy or concern that you would like to share in this sacred space, you can post it to the chat, or you can also contact one of the lay ministers or myself for pastoral care. I'd like to lift up Julia Brown, who is recovering from knee surgery right now, and she's appreciated the cards and well wishes. Also wanted to lift up Ruth Lovejoy, who has been recovering from COVID-19. She says she is doing well, and her partner is still testing negative, so that's good news. I'm going to hold in this space some silence so that you can share or just send good thoughts to those that you care for in this time. We give thanks for this community of care, and we close our joys and concern with these words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This morning we are interviewing Gloria Hochstein for our new member spotlight. Welcome.
I guess I'm not sure what a multiple things brought me here. A multiple of things brought me here at this time. I think COVID actually is one, in that I think we all need more communion in this time of social distancing. And I noticed as I was doing Zoom meetings and gatherings around the Chippewa Valley, I would see a number of my friends who are members of UU, and I saw you,
Yeah.
and I knew your name, and I kept thinking, maybe I should see where else these people are showing up, since we seem to have so many shared values, and we share so many things that we consider important. So that was one thing. Another is that for most all of my adult life so far, I have maintained a membership in the little hometown church I grew up in Southwest Minnesota. Primarily for the reasons that my mother still lived there, and the church was such an important part of her social and spiritual and physical life. And she passed away 2 years ago now, and though I will still continue to support the little church in Dundee, I don't feel the same connection with it that I had. when I was communicating with the people and keeping track of how mom was doing when I wasn't there.
Right, right.
Uh, and and I guess it was also an incentive. I started tuning in to your Sunday morning um, Facebook posts and many weeks ago. And I found it really quite delightful that I didn't have to get up and get dressed and go anywhere in order to be part of it. So that made it really easy. And then a few Sundays ago, I explored your Facebook page and I saw the 7 principles that guide the UU congregation. And I thought, boy, I'm I like these people. So I guess it's as much, maybe even more, a matter of communion than a change in my spiritual journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. It's great to have you in our community, and I know doing online services is a little different, but it's kind of neat that you're starting there, and you can be a part of our new culture, I guess, or our current culture, COVID culture.
Whatever that is, yes.
So
It's a new culture, yes.
yeah, yeah, and it's I agree. I think we're all looking for connection and meaning and community, and that's
Yeah,
important.
yeah, exactly.
Well, my last question for you is, with your values and the things that you care about, I know you're very active in, politics and in issues and in LGBTQ rights and just all the things that you believe in. What are some of the pieces of advice that you might pass on to a young person right now?
As I was thinking about this, I looked up a couple of printed pieces and quotes. One of them, and it's been said by many people, but I like the way Maya Angelou says it. Um, and it's sort of advice for how to live your life in general. And she says, hope for the best, be prepared for the worst, for no matter how bad it could be worse. And no matter how good it is, it could be better.
What draws us to the animals in our lives? Why does one specific animal or perhaps a species speak to our hearts more than others? Animals can add complexity, intensity, and even perplexity to our lives, and sometimes a treasured sense of belonging. In the past 4 months, COVID and the need for us to keep ourselves isolated for the safety of ourselves and our loved ones has led many people to be more isolated from the people they really love and care about. And so loneliness has crept into our lives. We know this is true because the pet shelters have had a record number of adoptions. It seems that more people need the comfort of another warm being, expanding their family beyond the human members and their housemates. Certainly, this has been true for me. especially now, but really for my whole life. Growing up, we never were allowed to have pets bigger than about 4 ounces in size. So we had a string of gerbils and mice and hamsters and parakeets. But on my 13th birthday, along with my twin sister, we catapulted ourselves into the ownership of a half-ton, 13-year-old Pinto mare named Blizzard. And Blizzard's main talent was dragging us wherever she wanted to go, even though we had 2 lead ropes attached to her halter, our heels dug in, and holding on for dear life. Despite her faults, we loved her ridiculously. And we 5 siblings on cold winter nights would go down to her barn and gather along beside her, either sitting on her back or sitting on the edges of her old stall, just watching her, watching the steam rise from her nostrils as she ate, and warming our hands under her warm, thick, curly mane. Her other talent, as we found out the hard way, was racing back to the barn and scaring us witless. So somehow we taught her to ground tie. And when we would go off for a ride and she would decide to turn around and race back toward the barn, we would fling the reins over her head and hang on for dear life as she screeched to a halt. And never in my life has I ever been so overconfident in my training capabilities than I was then. As we became more experienced and she mellowed, and I can remember coming home from high school, getting off the bus, grabbing her halter and my favorite book, and taking her up to a patch of green grass along the roadside, climbing up on her back and reading my book, laying back on her back, my head on her ample hips, and feeling her shifting beneath me as she took the occasional step to get a new mouthful of grass. And that memory is seared into my bones. It's something I will never forget. Except for Blizzard, our parents were never really keen on pets, which is understandable with 5 kids in a tiny bungalow. But they did raise us with a love and appreciation of the natural world, which I credit for my love of animal behavior and fascination with it. In graduate school, my first sighting of a sandhill crane happened in the mid-1970s when they were really rare. Next, I saw cranes at the International Crane Foundation near Baraboo, and I knew right away that what I wanted to do was study these amazing, long-necked, long-legged, prehistoric-looking birds. So under the wing of George Archibald, I studied their behavior, the development of each discrete behavioral pattern from its rudimentary forms as chicks into the fully honed adult behavior pattern. So it turns out that they have lots of distinct individual behaviors, and I gave them names like body wing shake and low bow and ruffle, ruffle, ruffle shake. And you could take these behavior patterns if you wanted. You could draw each one on a separate card, like a deck of cards. And you could lay these cards out in various patterns and sequences, just like a game of solitaire. Some sequences, like Jack, Queen, King, and Ace, are repeated frequently, and it turns out that each crane species has their own behavioral deck of cards. If a sandhill crane does a Jack, Queen, King, and Ace of Hearts, a whooping crane might do a 10 Jack, Queen, King, Ace of Diamonds. And this secret language of cranes fascinated me. I spent many, many months, days, and hours hunkered down at the top of a windy blind behind a spotting scope, observing these birds and their predictable behavior sequences. And I could call them out play by play like Bob Uecker at a Brewers game. It was like assembling the pieces of a puzzle of an evolutionary tree. And the more I learned about these cranes, the more invested I became in them and in their fragile place in the wetlands of the world. Back then, it was taboo to assign emotions to the behavior of animals. It was unprofessional to even think of animals as having emotional lives. And thank goodness behaviorists have evolved beyond this mindset. Which brings me to Temple Grandin, a behaviorist with an astounding understanding of the minds of cattle. She was born autistic, and as a child, she saw and heard much of the environment around her as chaos as she struggled to learn to communicate. In contrast, even as a child, she found peace and comfort in the presence of cattle. Today, she holds a PhD in animal science and has published many books and articles on the theory and practice of humane restraint and gentle holding of cattle. In her book, Thinking in Pictures, she says, "I always thought about cattle intellectually until I started touching them. I was able to remain the neutral scientist until I placed my hands on them. When I pressed my hands against the side of a steer, I could feel whether he was nervous, angry, or relaxed. The cattle flinched unless I firmly put my hands on them. But then touching had a calming effect, and it always brought me closer to the reality of their being." She goes on to say, when I put myself in a cow's place, I really have to be that cow. I use my visual thinking skills to simulate what an animal would see and hear. And I place myself inside the body and I imagine what it experiences. Oliver Sacks, in his foreword to Thinking in Pictures, says, "We can also share, even if we cannot fully understand, the extraordinary passion and the understanding for cattle which consume Temple, and which have made her by degrees a world-renowned expert in cattle, psychology and behavior, an inventor of devices and facilities for handling them, and a passionate advocate for their humane treatment." And we get a glimpse, this perhaps the least imaginable of all, of her total bewilderment about other people's minds, her inability to decipher their expressions and intentions, along with her determination to study them, study us, our alien behaviors, scientifically and systematically, as if, in her own words, she were an anthropologist on Mars. All of us who are lovers of animals have, to some extent, come to our affinity for a given species or individual partly by chance. Like Temple Grandin and her cattle, I've moved quite a way down the path of getting inside the skins of many dogs. Our first dog came to us about 35 years ago. She was the product of an accidental breeding of a relative's dog. And our second dog was a collie mix that wandered into the neighborhood and stole everything that wasn't tied down in our yard. Those two dogs became 4-H projects for our daughters, and they taught us over their long lives much more than we ever taught them. As a raiser of 25 litter dogs, puppies, and a counselor for other puppy raisers, I was driven to understand dogs better right on the cusp of a revolutionary change in the knowledge of how a dog learns. I lived that evolution, going from correcting doggy behaviors to shaping desired behaviors and rewarding those behaviors positively when we got them. Having not grown up with dogs, it really stuns me now to think back about how little they interested me until I was well into adulthood. And of course, now I adore them. I can read their body language well enough that most of the time I feel like I have a special connection with them, and I can intuit what interaction is needed to form a bond. But on the other hand, like Temple Grandin with a cat, I am an anthropologist on Mars. Whatever brings us together with a non-human being, there is something to the phrase, To know it is to love it. Oliver Sacks goes on to say, for Temple, clearly, there is a continuum of experience extending from the animal to the spiritual, from the bovine to the transcendent. Thinking in pictures is finally a study of identity, of the who-ness, no less the what-ness, of a most gifted autistic person. It was deeply moving and a fascinating book because it provides a bridge between our world and hers and allows us a glimpse into a quite different sort of mind. Maybe one of the draws we feel to animals is that in loving and caring for them and communicating with them, we do it in a mode that is so different from the way we deal with other human beings. Everything is more sensory and more visual and less words. When my dog cuddles up to me, she does so with her whole body stretching against my leg. And my hand automatically goes to stroking the length of her tawny back, and then I bury my fingers into the folds of her neck and her chest. And I'm amazed at the sense of comfort and calm that comes from the contact of the palm of my hand with her fur and feeling her chest rise and fall as she sleeps next to me. This shouldn't be a surprise to me, though, because as research has shown, when a human and animal bond forms, the presence of that non-human companion, like a dog, decreases our psychological arousal and stress, and it increases physiological changes that make us feel better. I have some stories from my friend Tammy, who is a leader dog puppy raiser, that beautifully illustrate the power that dogs have to provide comfort and courage. Her dogs participate in a school reading program, and reading to a dog is free of the stress or the struggling for perfection of grammar and pronunciation, because the dog is just there. It's listening without critique. It's a warm, fuzzy, comforting body. Last year, her black lab Ruckus took on a special task. There was a middle school girl that had developed a phobia of coming to school, and her teachers decided to think outside the box, which is where superhero Ruckus comes into the picture. Tammy says, we met this young lady, her mother and counselor, in the office. Ruckus walked in and settled with Girl. He acknowledged others that wanted to meet him, but went right back to Girl. After some cuddle time, Girl decided that she was ready to head to class. We escorted her to the room, and after a few loving rubs, she settled into her class. On another day, with a yellow lab therapy dog named Wally, Tammy says, the girl didn't have the courage to get out of the car. Wally and I walked over to the vehicle. The girl sat for a short time while her little brother piped up from the back seat, "Hi, therapy dog." Then Girl got out. Wally said hi to her, and we walked into the school together. We settled on the floor in our usual spot while she stroked Wally and chatted. The bell rang, and we walked to her locker as students started streaming by. Wally walked right between us, keeping step with us and ignoring all the commotion. Some kids stole a few pets, but Girl took this in stride. We dropped Girl off at her classroom, where she happily petted Wally, saying, "See you Monday," and went into her classroom. Tammy's comment was, "Aren't dogs awesome?" Ruckus helped another boy with separation anxiety. As Tammy says, this boy never took his hands off Ruckus for the 3 hours that we were there. Boy had a separation anxiety from his mom. He just didn't want to leave her, even though Ruckus was a good distraction, and he still kept looking for his mom to take him home. We got him into class, and he even participated, but you could just tell he just wanted to get out of there. The next day, Tammy says, Boy walked Ruckus down to the classroom and then settled right to work. And it was time for me to leave. Boy told his teacher that he was walking Ruckus to the office, and the teacher asked him, "Will you be back?" His response was yes. He walked Ruckus out, stopped to say hi to his mom, and then went back to class. Tammy says that she thought they were getting there, that this time he was engaged in class and looking like he really wanted to be there. Maybe not for a whole day, but ever so much better. Ruckus and Wally continue their work with students in the school setting. Their warm, calming presence and soft touch have helped so many students gain courage and confidence. And for some students, they truly have been changing lives. For much of the time that I spent at my computer writing this talk, my little yellow lab, Luna, has been curled up at my feet, touching my toes, keeping them warm. Her presence and warm touch are a calming presence in my life. I love watching life through the eyes of our dogs, Luna and our big black lab, River. When we have a pack of visiting dogs, which we often do, their wild, happy antics just bring joy to my heart. It is endlessly fascinating to observe their communication with their bodies and with their barks. They seem to live entirely in the moment, fully engaged in the scent of a trail, the call of a bird, or just walking side by side. And I am drawn into their world, appreciating the small things that catch their attention. My own concerns of the day fall away from me, and I can feel a warm bubble of love rise in my chest. How could I not engage in this moment as much as they do? And finally, I feel that I could not leave the cows out of this talk. For a second summer, we are hosting several British white cattle, and they're cows, and they dine on our reed canary grass, which is an invasive species and infests our wetland. So these cows are on loan from some cattle graziers who have perfected the art of keeping cattle in harmony with the environment. They flash graze, and we do too, small areas, and then move the cattle on to the next pasture until that area has fully recovered with ample regrowth, and then the cattle come back again. Nesting birds, native plant species, and pollinator insects thrive in harmony with this herd. These cattle are small in stature, and we have our own 3 cows that have been chosen for us because of their especially docile nature. And in the last few weeks, each of our 3 cows has given birth to a calf. And they bring to mind to me a matronly elephant family, the calves moving freely among all the moms who only draw the line at nursing somebody else's calf. I could just watch them endlessly, only guessing at the herd mentality that keeps them in sync as they graze, as they lay down to chew their cud, resting in the shade. They tolerate us close at hand when we fill their water tank, and they eagerly welcome us when we arrive with buckets full of alfalfa pellets, their favorite treat. We avoid worrying the cows by keeping a respectful distance from their calves. And yet, when I sit in the grass near the water tank, Peppercorn, one of our cows, comes over, followed by her heifer calf, who curiously approaches and retreats from my boots. Finally, when Peppercorn has drunk her fill from the water tank and the calf is just inches from my boot, Peppercorn gives a low moo and nudges her calf as if to say, "Move along now," and they wander off. And I will hold in my memory this precious interaction for a long time. Perhaps you can relate to my attachment to dogs, or horses, or cows, or cranes. Or perhaps for you it is another pet, maybe a parakeet or a cat, or as my daughter reminds me to mention, perhaps even a hermit crab. Maybe finding a nest, or watching birds on your bird feeder, or a doe that walks through your yard with her fawns, brings you similar feelings of calm and connection. Wherever you find your window into the world of animals and their joy in the moment, and the peace and connection that comes from your bonds with both within and beyond the human world, I wish that for you. Thank you.
Now is the time for our giving. Our 50/50 Share the Plate recipient this summer is the Chippewa Valley LGBTQ Center. And you can designate when you donate funds, that whether it's for the general fund, pledge payment, or for our 50/50 Share the Plate recipient. The giving will now be given and gratefully received.
Never has it been more true than now. We extinguish this flame, but the sparks within us remain alight. From each of us in our supposed solitude, the signals buzz and hum, sparkling, through space one to another, connecting us invisibly, but palpably. We are one, and from every window our light shines.
Our closing words today are Four-Element Blessing by Eric Williams. May the firmness of the earth be yours. May the flow of the water be yours. May the freedom of the air be yours. May the fierceness of the fire be yours. May all of the gifts of this life, the below and the above, be with you now and remain with you always.